mystery of the immovable ladder. We all love symbols. One image can say so many things: hearts for love or folded hands for prayer or hope. Still, not all symbols are good symbols. One such symbol is the immovable ladder of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that is a religious symbol of a sort, a kind of miracle possible only through human folly. It's also one of the most powerful and iconic symbols of the divisions and religious disputes within the Christian world and within Christian churches. It has, however, for at least 142 years been a symbol for both unity and division. As such, it symbolizes an official status quo that exists there. The term status quo comes from the Latin meaning the way things were before, and by extension, the way things are now and will be in the future. The church itself, located in the Christian quarter behind the high walls of Jerusalem's old city, is a cavernous and ancient network of buildings. All up, it's more than 1,600 years old and erected on what's traditionally been the sites where Jesus of Nazareth was crucified and resurrected. The ladder stands outside the window on the second floor of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the presumed site of the tomb of Christ. The care over the church is shared by no less than 6 denominations. The primary custodians are the Greek Orthodox, Armenian Apostolic, and Roman Catholic Church, with lesser duties shared by Coptic, Ethiopian, and Syriac Orthodox churches. The whole edifice is carefully parceled into sections, some being commonly shared, while others belonging strictly to a particular sect. A set of complicated rules govern the transit rights of the other groups through each particular section on any given day, and especially during the holidays. However, some of the sections of the church still remain hotly disputed to this day. Disputes. An uneasy truce had settled between religious orders since the status quo edict. However, arguments and violence do occasionally break out. In a dispute in 2002, a Coptic Christian monk moved his chair slightly into Ethiopian Orthodox space. 11 people were hospitalized after the fighting ended. Arguments and violent clashes are not uncommon. In November 2008, the internet was flooded with videos of a fistfight between Armenian and Greek monks in one such dispute. A small section of the roof of the church is disputed between the Copts and Ethiopians, and at least one Coptic monk at any given time sits there on a chair placed on a particular spot to express this claim. On a hot summer day, one such monk moved his chair some 20 centimeters into the shade, and this was interpreted as a hostile act and a violation of the status quo. The state of affairs makes any agreement about renovations or repairs on the edifice practically impossible. The church is in a state of decay as a result. History. The Holy Sepulchre traces back to a structure first built in the 4th century by the Roman Emperor Constantine. His mother, Saint Helen, came to the Holy Land in 326 AD to discover the sacred sites of Christ's life. Golgotha and the Tomb of Christ were 2 of those sites. Helena reportedly located the burial site as well as the true cross on which Jesus was crucified hundreds of years later. Constantine then ordered the church to be built on the site, replacing an existing pagan temple. The church was completed in the year 335. Pilgrims have been traveling to the church, and pilgrims have been traveling to the church since the 4th century. Massive crowds of tourists and pilgrims continue to visit the site to this day, COVID aside. In the 7th century, Persian invaders destroyed most of Constantine's church. It was rebuilt, but twice damaged by earthquakes. The Islamic Caliph in the 11th century destroyed it, but the church was later rebuilt by the Crusaders in the 12th century. Despite frequent repairs and remodeling, the current look of the church dates back to the early 1800s. Even a pope has gotten involved in the ladder controversy. Linking the historic break between the Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches in 1054, Pope Paul VI, who reigned in the 1960s and 1970s, issued a papal request that the ladder not be moved until the Orthodox and Catholic churches reunite. So, basically, never. Peace didn't last. For its first centuries, there was peace among the Christians in the Holy Land. However, after the break between the East and the West, in 1099, irritations started to rise. This escalated as Muslim armies overran the area. Finally, the Western Church launched the Crusades. These bloody engagements widened the rift between the East and West, and by the time peace was finally restored, and maintained it was under various Muslim sultans. Finally, in 1852, Sultan Abdulmecid I issued a firman, an edict, that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre would be shared between the Greeks, the Catholics, and the Armenians. This became known as the status quo of the holy places in 1852 and was later guaranteed in the Treaty of Berlin in 1878. The treaty was signed after Russia had overthrown the Ottoman Empire. Around this time, the ladder, now called the immovable ladder, appeared. Some sources said it had been there since 1757, but no one knows for sure. In fact, no one knows which church put it there, though most often cited are the Armenians. The edict became known as the status quo agreement. The ladder then became immovable because to be moved, all 6 church groups had to agree to it being moved, and it was never agreed upon which church should take possession of the ladder, and the mundane object became a symbol of the division within Christianity itself. According to some source, the windows belonged to the Armenians, but the ledge where the ladder rests belonged to the Greek Orthodox. It was common for the Armenians to put a ladder under the window and descend to the ledge below to watch ceremonies in the square in front of the church. The Armenians also used the ledge to pull up with rope, food and supplies brought to them. This of course offended the Greeks, but they couldn't protest because the status quo was already laid down with the ladder beneath the window. Under the firman, the edict, all the churches involved must agree before anything is done in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and that has not been easy. Because of the tensions between the Christian denominations, a Muslim family has historically been entrusted with keeping the keys of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The keys keep getting handed down to the next generation. As a sign of neutrality, every morning a member of the family opens the church doors for all denominations to enter at once or at will. The need for complete agreements extend to repairs. In 1927, another earthquake damaged the ornate shrine surrounding Christ's tomb. The British government, which controlled what was then known as Palestine, built an iron cage around it to prevent the structure from collapsing. However, that meant to be a temporary fix, not even a fix, just a not falling down thing. Yet, nothing changed, and by the early part of this century, the damages were clear. Finally, the Israeli police shut down the church and barricaded it on February the 17th, 2015, fearing the whole thing would collapse, it being in such bad shape. This forced the 6 churches disregard the status quo. A March 2016 agreement saw the 3 main partners agree to contribute to the 3.4 million cost of repairs, and within a year the work was done and capped with an ecumenical ceremony on March the 22nd, 2017. Exactly 1 year later, after the agreement was struck. Everything went so well with the first experiment that the 3 churches entered another agreement in 2019. The agreement was to repair the pavements under the church that had rusted from rainwater runoff. But through it all, the immovable ladder still remained. It has been moved at least 3 times, at least once by accident, in the last 50 or so years. In 1981, someone stole the ladder and it went missing for a short time. The local police soon found the ladder and returned it to its rightful spot, though the thieves were never discovered. The ladder was also moved in 1997 when it was allegedly taken by a mischievous tourist and hidden behind an altar. As tensions mounted among the churches, especially the Greek Orthodox and Armenian churches, the ladder was finally returned to its original position several weeks later. The immovability of the ladder is certainly more symbolic than factual. It's not real, as it has been moved several times in the past. As an example, in 2009, the ladder was moved from the right window to the left one. According to one source, this was done so as to allow the area to be cleaned. Another source, however, claims that the ladder was moved so that the scaffolding that was needed to complete the renovations being made to the bell tower could be cleared away. However, photos dating to the 19th century show it largely in the same place. So that ladder remains as both a symbol of disunity and now, with the renovations, a symbol of potential unity. Constructive work is being done together, and there is cooperation with the Israeli government, as the 3 leaders of the Greek, Roman Catholic and Armenian churches declared when announcing the current pavement work. This project comes immediately after the positive outcome of the project for the restoration of the Holy Tomb itself. It marks and confirms the community's ongoing commitment to the maintenance and rehabilitation of this holiest place, which, in its silence, and bareness proclaims the very essence of our faith. It is a start and a change in the status quo, with the ladder standing like a silent witness of time passing by.